Good morning, people of God. Today we're talking about trust. Trust is a pretty big deal. It doesn't matter where you are in life, what kind of relationships you have, what kind of climate we're in. Trust is one of the anchoring parts of any relationship. And when that trust is broken, it's hard to move on. And when trust is broken, we feel betrayed. So trust is kind of our anchor in any kind of relationship. And today we are in Psalm 62, where we are offered a message of trust and how one person has come to be a champion for who we should trust in. As the song begins, it begins with these beautiful, beautiful words of images of something solid and something perfect. Well, as perfect as it can get. You see, there's a refrain that's echoed throughout this. For God alone, my soul waits in silence. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall never be shaken. It's great that we're hearing this song, and the songwriter starting out by telling us how great it is to have God alone as the rock, as the fortress, and that with God, the songwriter cannot be shaken. That's beautiful. But that's the refrain. And like any song, there's verses and a refrain. And the refrain is the message that we should keep in our heart. That's the part that matters. But the verses tell the story of why the refrain is so important. And in Psalm 62, that's the refrain. That God alone is the rock and the salvation and the fortress. And in God alone do we trust. So why are we coming to this point in the story? The first verse of the song, which actually shows up in verses 3 and 4 of the psalm, that tells us that there has been trouble. The songwriter has experienced broken relationships. There's references to lies. There's references to needing to find asylum. That the world has not been nice. The people in the world have not been nice. And the songwriter is looking for a safe place, a sanctuary. We can relate to that, can't we? The world isn't always perfect. It's full of people and we all make mistakes. And sometimes we break each other's trust. And sometimes that happens in really big ways that hurt a whole lot. And the songwriter's being very candid about that. That in a world that is broken, where do we put our trust? We want to trust each other, and we do. But sometimes our systems fail us. Sometimes our friends fail us. And that hurts. So where do we turn for that healing, for that salvation, for that grace? What is the one thing that can get us through? According to the song, it's God. I think there's a lot of value in this song, a lot of reminders. So we turn again and we hear that great refrain. My soul alone waits in silence. He alone is my rock, my salvation, my fortress. I shall never be shaken. As you hear Psalm 62, I invite you to go ahead and read all of it. It's a short 12 verses. And in these 12 verses, there's something for everyone. I love how many songs we have derived from the Psalms themselves. And Psalm 62 is not the only place that we hear of God as a rock and our strength and our shield and our fortress and our deliverer. It's one of many, and it's not exclusive to just the songs because the message is so valuable. The trust is so necessary. We all need something solid. And throughout the scriptures, the image of Christ as something solid is repeated again and again. God knows what we need. and we need someone to trust. As we consider the rest of the song, it's a beautiful invitation. You see, it begins with the songwriter asserting, "This is whom I trust. I trust in God alone." And then the songwriter tells us why. I trust in God alone because I've had some problems in my life, and God has always been there for me to get me through. So now we shift into that second verse of the song. The songwriter's like, hey, if God did this for me, God can do it for you. So all of you people, you need to trust in God too. So let all of the people trust in God. Let us all see God as our rock and as our strength and as our fortress. Let us all trust in God. It's an invitation. It's a call. It's a promise. We trust God because God doesn't break God's promises. So where does this take us? If we remember in Mark chapter 1, where we are also reading from today, there's another invitation happening. Jesus is walking along the shore of Galilee, and he says to his disciples, who are just fishermen at this point, "Come follow me. Follow me." It's an invitation to put our trust in God, to put our trust in Jesus. If God is so solid, if Christ is our rock on which we stand, if Christ is our fortress and it's in Christ we trust, then we absolutely can follow because we know God's got us. Jesus isn't going to lead us somewhere unkind, unsafe. Jesus is going to lead us in the way of righteousness and truth. And I come back to the psalm because the psalm is so beautiful. The psalm is a song that we carry in our heart. Music moves people. Music is what our bodies remember. Music is our heart language. It doesn't matter if we're singing praise songs or hymns or even pop songs or whatever your thing is. It's the refrain that lingers. And I want this refrain to linger for us, that God is our rock. Now I want you to notice in the refrain from Psalm 62, you have to read closely, because in the first verse, when we first hear the refrain, it tells us that God is our salvation. And a few verses later, the second time the refrain is uttered, the word salvation is changed to hope. Both are true. God is our salvation. God is our hope. Now, why did the songwriter change it? There's an absolute conviction of salvation. That is already known. But hope is what we start to lose when the world is a messy place. And if we remember that rock is also our hope, then we don't lose it so quickly. We can regain our hope, not just in God, but also in humanity, because we've just invited everyone to have trust in God too. May you carry this invitation with you and be like the songwriter. May you be able to loudly proclaim where your trust lies and why. And may you carry the invitation to others to also trust in God, to show them what God's done in your life by what you do, what you say, how you live. Because trust in God, that's a pretty amazing gift. And for that, I say thanks be to God.